This is the Sales Bible Podcast, episode 326, When and Where to Automate Sales Outreach, an interview with Gessi Schechinger.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers, and this is the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. We believe that anyone can become great at sales as long as you have the helpful mindset and the ability to genuinely listen. As I mentioned in the beginning, we have 326 episodes in the back catalog. You can easily find them at salesbabble.com. Today, I'm very excited to introduce today's guest. His name is Gessi Schechinger. He is the Chief Revenue Officer at OnCourse. He's responsible to successfully execute the strategies for their sales and client success teams. He is a strong proponent of sales automation, and in this episode, he shares his process with steps that are appropriate to be automated and those that are not, and best left manual for personalization. And so, with no further ado, let's get to it. Welcome, Gessi. Are you ready to babble?
I am so ready to babble, Pat. Let's do this.
Gessi, this is the real you. This is not an automation of you, but you're an automation guy, correct?
That is correct. And as soon as I figure out how to automate these podcasts, I'm going to make myself seem much smarter.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun. Did you ever hear about the two Facebook apps? There was this experiment that Facebook had where they had two apps talking to each other, AI apps, and they started creating their own secret language, and they couldn't figure it out, and they shut it down before.
Yeah, did they like
the world, right?
Well, we've all been afraid of like this Terminator situation, and those two apps got there in like seconds. It was like, all right, they like found out that humans were useless like way too quick. We're like, oh, we got to watch this automation stuff.
Their language is not optimal. Yeah, we can make this better. Like,
It was like, oh God.
But that's what you are, right? Your expertise is in the area of automation, and everybody is looking for that. Everybody's looking for some way to boost their productivity, and that's the kinds of things that that you're all about, correct?
Yeah, and generally speaking, I've done sales for my entire life, and I've done all different types, from just ripping out cold calling to, being an airplane guy where I'm on the road all the time, to doing some more transactional sales and software demos and things of that nature. And largely, I get annoyed with, I would say, burning calories on things that don't require my time. And so really just trying to focus around like, I guess this journey for me over the last couple of years has been, how do I stop burning calories? Because I'm really just a lazy sales guy who'd much rather be on the golf course or in the bar than working. And really, the challenge there is, Pat, I also really like money. And so you have to bridge that gap somehow. And the best way to bridge that gap for me is by trying to automate as much of my life as possible without just pissing everybody off, and all of a sudden, because their computer can't sell everything for you, but there's certainly some ways it can help.
You see people do this all the time and do it poorly, which is, I think, the kind of thing I'd like to chat about today. I was just on LinkedIn, and I just got the copy paste of, I'd like to grow my network, Pat. I see we have common connections. Of course, they don't say who.
And everybody's super interested in your business too, by the way.
Right.
I'm very interested in what you do, what your company's doing. I'm like, I don't feel like you are.
I see you've made some posts.
Yeah, you guys have made the posts. Like, oh, went out on a limb there, did you?
You really dug into my profile. And I really want to bring this up for a point, because we see this done so poorly. So when guys like your type, come along and say they're going to even automate it even more, I kind of roll my eyes.
You and every one of, it's a very interesting group of people. And when you're talking about sales automations, you have a couple different camps. So the one camp are like the SaaS companies, and these guys are like sponges. They're going to eat up all of it. They're like, yep, we can do that. We can do that. We can do that. That makes sense. Let's do it. And then you have kind of these service-based companies, which they're not really sure if it'll work, but they're willing to give it a try. And then you have like old school manufacturing who they're just like, they're not having any of it. They think all of this is just like the junk email they get every day, and we're never going to make a penny through automation, and it's terrible. And those guys, and for this sense of this podcast, I'd like to approach the audience like that, right? Like everything that I'm saying is complete nonsense, and I'd love to just convince you guys otherwise. Because in my view, there are ways that you can automate your daily routine without losing the personal touch. And what you just kind of described, Pat, in your initial feedback there of that in-depth, that in-depth LinkedIn salesman, goes to that. There was like, you felt there was absolutely no personalized touch, right?
Right.
And that you're just one in a million lists that this guy is blasting through. And that in most cases is exactly correct. And it really comes to one. And as far as this conversation, I'd really like to aim a specific on LinkedIn, because there's a couple things that I think people maybe hesitant to about LinkedIn. But if they're not currently selling there, they really need to be. And as a selling environment, LinkedIn obviously started as just this kind of network, and a lot of it was just kind of getting connections to maybe get another job, right? There's your resumes out there. People who need people could find you, locate you, do that. Well, and then the byproduct of that were, in some cases, you are looking for decision makers. And now that, if you go through the typical cold calling, you got the receptionist, you're doing a little lobby stop, you got to do all that work to get to the decision maker, at least what you think is the decision maker. Whereas LinkedIn, you get direct access. Now you're like, okay, we have this LinkedIn platform, we have direct access to this decision maker. How do I go about in a responsible way reaching out to this person? And it's a delicate dance, just like all things in sales truly are. You want to connect, but you want to connect in the spirit of which the tool is used for. Now, I'm sure that as we just kind of made fun of the asking, like, I'm very interested in your business, or I love that you make posts. There is, a way to connect where I just connect with people, and our team connects with people, and we just have a connection. And we see if the person is, step one, even interested in establishing a connection. Don't throw, nothing says sales guy than when someone connects with you with a message inserted into that connection. It might feel nice that you're like, hey, you want to give them a little idea. But to me, it's a good temperature gauge of the activity level that your prospect has in LinkedIn, if they just accept or not. And if you have a message with everything, you're not really going to understand where that person is, because they might just be expanding their network willy-nilly. And so you get that connection. The second is
okay. Stop. Let me stop right there. I want to make sure I get what you're saying. You're saying connect with them without a message, without the note.
Yes, the note is telltale. I'm selling you something. That's what it's sending to the public.
Really?
100%. Because nobody believes you want to be friends. Because you know what you do with your friends? You don't send a message telling them you're friends.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't do that, but I often send notes saying, "Oh, somebody said." It's usually some kind of connection, and whatever I would put in a note, it would be customized for that person. Oh, I see you went to SIU. Oh, I see you went to this event. Oh, do you follow me on Sales Babble? Oh, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what we're getting to, right? And so, because you do need that personal. And so my point being that if you send a note to a prospect and you start making in that notes, you're starting to make assumptions, and you haven't connected with that person previous to this, you might be shooting yourself in the foot a little bit. Whereas if you just send out the connection, now they connect, and it's up to you to decide how that relationship moves forward. And I think the most logical thing to do in all sense, and I think you'll probably agree, is just thanking that person for the connection. Step one, thank you, and you'll leave it at that. it's, I don't know if you're a married guy or single or whatever, Pat, but I'm hoping that you've had a relationship in this life.
I'm pretty married. I think I've been married 36 years in May.
So you don't remember what it was like, but
Yes. My wife's a lovely lady. Yes. Denise is a lovely lady. Anyway.
which is good because that means you don't know what it's like to form new girlfriends. But so um, the thing is you can't rush that dating phase. You can just speed up through that as much as you want and form a relationship with somebody. I do it as if I would in a live situation. So I'm going to thank somebody for connecting the same way I would say pleasure to meet you, right? I'm going to give it a couple days and let that kind of sink in and let them try, because timing's everything. This LinkedIn forever as well. The second, I am going to just start asking them questions about their business, because I don't want to assume that I know their business. I don't want to assume that I know their value prop. I want to ask them questions about their business. And the minute they engage or interact, the automation has to stop right there. That's one of the most frustrating things that you'll hear from people, is that if they actually did engage, they still somehow end up on the spam list. And that gets people frustrated fairly quickly. The patience level in today's internet can be measured in nanoseconds. So inside of that message, you really are trying to just ask and inquire. And then when you have that inquiry question, the next stage is we do enter in that manual step. And that's what you were talking about, Pat, when you were talking about that personalized experience, is really taking, we call it the 2x2. This is used in multiple sales organizations. Is you take 2 minutes and you find two things relevant to the actual person you're reaching out to. And that's where, like you highlighted, for example, in the beginning here, of you would notice where someone went to school, what kind of job they're in, where is that relatable? And I think that's something that we all do when we're building our personal relationships, because we always mine for those things that we have in common, to have a centralized baseline. But outside of that, we can help guide and, kind of take that conversation to the next steps. And then, as you do that 2x2, you can automate some follow-ups and check-ins and things like that are just 1 to 2 sentences. The number one rule, and we're going to talk about generalized animation here in a second, is, let me ask you a question, Pat. When's the last time that you read an email or a message from somebody that was 3 paragraphs long and you didn't know that person's name?
Never. I couldn't recall. In fact, I see those.
Yeah, you get this.
You see these 5-paragraph things on LinkedIn. I'm like, really, dude?
Oh man, it's like these war and peace, messages. It's just like nobody's reading that, and so you might as well save your time. And then lastly, I think I would always suggest to people is automating that calendar function and making sure that you're asking for time on somebody's calendar in those messages and slowly following up. And so at a very, very high level, without talking of any kind of value prop or product information or something like that, that's kind of the outline of the generalized approach on LinkedIn that has been highly successful. And when I want your listeners to think about this, I want them to think like, hey, here's just some idiot that was on Pat's show that's just claiming out a bunch of nonsense. There is research that everyone can look at that can firm up and really drive home through stats and numbers that the engagement you're going to get. Because the reality is LinkedIn can be leveraged huge, but there are some rules. LinkedIn generically does not want you to use much automation. They are actually actively against it. That said, you guys are busy salespeople and you're not going to have the time to do the amount of outbound that could be necessary. And even if it's not outbound, it's following up. Another powerful way to use automation is client retention and follow-up. You're not reaching out to people you don't know. You're reaching out to people you know, and you're scheduling your communication with those people far in advance so that when, even though you're going about your daily activities, in the background, you are following up with those persons or seeing that you're reaching out to them and interested in following up with your product, service, etc.
Interesting. Very, very, very interesting.
Well, and Pat, as we talk about the stats, are you familiar with the Topo report?
No, I'm not. What is the Topo report?
Yeah, so the Topo report it's a third-party research company, and all they do is they study outbound sales offers and sales cadences for about 300 companies a year. And at the end of the year, they take all the stats, the engagement levels, and they print out this lovely 18-page document that if you ever have trouble sleeping, I can pass to you.
Well,
But
well, actually, I'm going to ask you to share that link if you could.
no, I absolutely will. I'll shoot that over to you, and you can put that in the program notes or whatever.
Yeah.
But this is it's a really cool report for us sales junkies out there, in particular people that maybe don't sell for the living, but they're trying to just get an understanding of what people are doing in today's market, how they're becoming so effective. But let's take an inbound lead, for example. What the TOPA report will tell you about an inbound lead is that it's going to take about 8 to 10 touches. Inside, you're going to end up using a couple different channels. You're going to have to call, you're going to have to email, you're going to have to chat. It's going to take place over 14 days. You're going to have a response time of less than an hour. And you can go through, and I can tell you, like, if you have an SDR, so I'm sure that the people listening to your show are fairly well versed, but a lot of software companies and service companies, they'll have like an SDR type role that sets demos, and then an AE or account executive role that kind of brings those things to close. It'll help you guide. So, for example, there could be 125 touches in order to get one engagement, right? Which is like an awful stat. With LinkedIn, so let's say that just generic email, you can hope for 2%. Outside of that 2% in email, if you call, that number jumps to 12%, which is pretty awesome. It's a really huge, might sound like a small percentage, but in your outbound efforts, 12% is unbelievable. Crank that up with some LinkedIn and you'll get to 30% engagement. That means 1 out of 3 are at least saying no or okay, or they're responding to you, not just throwing the ball into dead air. You're getting some kind of feedback to work off of. Again, these are not closed numbers. These are measurements of simple engagement. And through this data, especially and everyone wants to know about outbound, they include the LinkedIn channel in outbound. And like I said, the stats just get incredibly better. And that engagement level, and you're way more productive with your time.
So I want to be clear. This is similar to what I teach in my LinkedIn class, is that you connect with them on LinkedIn, and then I send them an email, and then after connecting with them an email, and then try to leave them a voicemail, and then I repeat that like 3 times. That's what the Topo report's saying is a 30% connection rate.
Correct. And that's the engagement rate that's entered when you're incorporating LinkedIn into traditional outreach campaigns.
Interesting. That is super awesome. That's super interesting.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating because, again, if done responsibly, you can eliminate yourself from the noise that the other guys are using, and you'll get that direct engagement with the person you think. And largely, even if they're not the guy, they'll help direct you to the guy because you were very genuine and honest on what you're doing. And everybody kind of knows what's doing, but people, they really do appreciate if you take the time to actually understand, do you have a problem here? I mean, some people I talk to, their companies, they have about 10 core customers that support their entire business, and they want to get into software. And I say, why? You don't need it. You got 10 guys to manage. Like, you don't need any of these tools. What you're doing is working. If that's the structure of your manufacturer that has these 10-year partnerships, you don't need any of this. But if you're in a high velocity situation or a transactional situation where you do need to get those frequency, automation is really going to amplify those efforts.
I love that. Before we finish up here, you guys do sales tools, right? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about some of these automation tools, right? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that before we move on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So we have a sales engagement platform, and it's called OnCourse. You can look it up at tryoncourse.com. And what we've done is, in addition, Pat, to being lazy, I get highly annoyed quickly. And our mother company is a company called ZibTech, and we did custom software services for enterprise businesses. And we had to spend a lot of money on sales tools in order to do that. And what started out with like Salesforce and a couple others, I was paying 20 grand a year. All of a sudden, before I knew it, we were paying 60 grand a year. And I was like, what happened? Like, how did these things get so out of control? And so I told the guys, I was like, listen, let's build a tool and let's just chip away at every single thing that we need to run our services business. And let's just start eliminating these line items. And so what TryOnCourse is it's a consortium, if you will, of a couple of different tools. And so we have the traditional CRM functionality, where you have an opportunity management, you have basic client records and history and all that kind of stuff. And then it also has a bulk email tool that replaces some of that Constant Concept, Contact, and MailChimp type thing.
Right,
we also do bulk SMS. And then, of course, because I've just literally preached it to you very boringly for the last 20 minutes, it has LinkedIn automation.
No. This is really interesting. Don't give me this. Is
but I was like, literally, so it's got the LinkedIn piece. And so it's got a Chrome plugin to it that'll help. And I mean, I don't know if I'm sure you teach a LinkedIn class, so I know that you've run into this. Try to manage follow-ups if you only use the LinkedIn inbox. I mean, it's terrible. Yeah. You can't sort.
You can't sort. You can't search easily. No. You can do a little search, but you can't sort.
Yeah, and just trying to schedule follow-ups and all that. And so this is going to take all that information automatically, create a profile inside OnCourse, get that little LinkedIn URL. So when you schedule your follow-ups, you click, you're right there. You can respond to messages, really manage that entire thing very effectively. And then in addition, also, of course, having that automation piece where it lets you schedule these sequences. And I was literally on a call for 2 hours with a medical device company this morning. And what I had to drill down with them, which they couldn't really understand, was that even if you use automation to only reach out to your current clients and only do follow-ups, you still have freed up bandwidth to go do that personalized outbound selling. This tool is amazing for outbound, but even if you were just to use it to cut out the noise, and like if you have tasks today, so if you're a listener out there who has a CRM and your task says follow up to bill with email, now you've annoyed Gessi Schechinger because that could have been automated.
So you're not using an API in a LinkedIn. You're actually like there's like little URLs associated with all the content that's being stored in LinkedIn, and that's what you're tagging. That's what you're managing.
So the Chrome plugin works, and it's not an API tag in. And we're all the automated tools that are in the market today. There's us, there's Duck Soup, there's others. All of these tools we're all kind of rogue agents, so to speak. But we've learned through a Chrome plugin to automate, go through, and it captures the individual's URL. So that is, just like you'd have a phone number, name, fax line for all of you out there that may have even heard of a fax machine.
Oh, it's the profile URL.
The profile, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, clever. Okay.
And so it links you straight back to them.
Right, and then you can just message them, and it'll give you the message thread for them, and you'll know exactly where you left off. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Awesome. So how can people find this?
Yeah, so please go to tryoncourse.com. You can click and set up a demo. Love to talk to you guys about your business processes. And I would say the big thing that we do that probably a lot of the other competitors don't do is that we very much believe in the white glove process. Our opinion of the market is that most people are only using 20 to 30% of their CRMs. And so you're not going to get this huge training piece. And we also have an in-house implementation team that can take you out of whatever tool you're in and get you all set up in our tool if you're looking to make a change.
Awesome. Was there anything you wanted to give away?
So I will say that if you sign up for a demo, talk to somebody, and you say that you heard it on the Sales Babble podcast, we are traditionally $125 per month per user, and you're going to get it for $80 if you mention Pat or the Sales Babble podcast.
Is there anything else you wanted to bring up, Gessie, before we move on?
Yeah, and I will share one incredible gem that we learned in the outbound sales efforts. So you could think that, yes, you can automate a ton of what you do inside your LinkedIn efforts, but to a degree, you're always going to need that personalized experience, and you need somebody that might be able to help you actually respond to some of these things. And so obviously, Pat, I didn't want to spend a bunch of full-time employees following up on just LinkedIn efforts. So what I actually did was I ended up creating a program with our local university where I ended up just having college kids that could go and run these LinkedIn automation and follow up and work as SDRs. And instead, we tried to get someone to do this for 8 hours a day. And it was mind-numbing, Pat. They were going to kill themselves. It was terrible. So what we ended up is 3 hours a day with some college kids. It was a great way for them to learn business. It gave a lot of value to us because they were part-time workers. They're extremely productive in the 3 hours that they're here. And we just have more of those people coming in at 3 hours a time. And that was a massive game changer in our LinkedIn outreach campaign. And so maybe if you're tight from a budget standpoint on what you want to invest in a sales team, that is another way that you can play with the model and play with the automation. And the reason that we're confident in these lovely ladies from I'll give them a shout out, the Salt Lake community soccer team, women's soccer team. The reason we're so confident in them is because we have a great sequence that's put together and a cadence, and they just have to learn a couple really quick personalized thing, and then they pass it on to someone that really knows the project. And so that's been an awesome thing that has brought a lot of value to our company.
That's a great idea. I actually did that once. I had 3 kids working for me part-time who were college kids. They did a terrific job. Still friends with them today. So
yeah. I mean, we're always loving interns, and it's a great way. I dream about, I was a server when I was in college, and so I never got to hang out at night. All these ladies, they get to come to work. They're just 3 hours in the middle of the day. They still have college kids earning a bunch of money a month, and they still get their nights and weekends. It's incredible. I wish I had that opportunity when I was their age.
Awesome.
Probably would have gotten more trouble though.
Hey, Gessie, this has been fun.
God, I hope so. Hopefully we're going to automate. Hopefully I'm going to automate a more entertaining guest for you.
I think this has been fun. No, this has been good. Hey, thanks so much for babbling here on Sales Babble.
Awesome, Pat. You're the best. Thanks so much.
Sales starts with getting your prospect's attention. Given all the noise, you have to be different. You have to personalize your outreach. Unfortunately, it's time-consuming to go to Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube to find an icebreaker. It's a conundrum because personalized outreach converts significantly higher than canned emails. Picture the possibility that with one click, you could get a social footprint of your prospect, which would make personalized outreach faster. With Sharetivity, you instantly discover personal information regarding your interests, college, and social media posts on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. With Sharetivity, you can make each outreach personalized, yet fully automated to fill your pipeline. Sharetivity is a Chrome extension. Search for it in the Chrome Web Store. It only takes 2 minutes to download, and soon you'll be skyrocketing your prospecting productivity today. Sharetivity. One-click personalization. I could really identify with Gessie's thoughts on how often people copy and just paste things on LinkedIn. Without doubt, it just looks like spam. That's not what you want to do. The more that you can do to personalize your outreach to prospects, the more likely they're going to convert. Love that study that showed that if you connect with people on LinkedIn and send an email, that you have a 30% chance of actually connecting with them. From that Topo report, so darn interesting. To connect with Gessie and to find links to On Course, you can go to the show notes at www.salesbabble.com/326. I want to remind you we've got a telebabble coming up this Thursday at 4 o'clock Central, 5 o'clock Eastern, and that would be 2 o'clock Pacific time. We'll be talking about sales outreach and the best way to connect with prospects. One of the best ways people hear about Sales Babble is from listener reviews. If you could go on to your favorite podcast app, the one that you're listening on right now, and leave us a 5-star comment, hey, I would really appreciate it, because word of mouth is how podcasts spread. Please, please, please support our sponsor, Sharetivity, which continues this theme of personalized outreach on LinkedIn. If you go to the show notes, you can find links to get a free account. Well, that's all I've got for this week. Until next Tuesday, take care and have a highly successful and profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.
This is a production of Habanero Media.